We're going to do that in a bit. First of all, potholes. How many have you seen? There are a lot around, aren't they? And indeed, has one ever wrecked your car? If that's happened to you, if your car has been wrecked or you got a puncture because of a pothole, would you know what to do next? Thousands of drivers have submitted claims for damage to their local councils in the last 5 years, but only a fraction of those have been paid out, according to a BBC investigation. Now, I guess the obvious solution is to make sure potholes aren't there in the first place, but according to the Asphalt Industry Alliance, it would cost $1.94 billion to clear the backlog of repairs across the West Midlands. Let's talk to Scott Dixon, a consumer and motoring disputes expert, hosts the Facebook page The Complaints Resolver, and joins us now. Scott, morning.
Good morning, Ed.
Good morning. Good to talk to you. How easy is it for someone to claim if they hit a pothole?
It's not easy, but it's not impossible, Ed. So the first thing you need to do if you do hit a pothole is report it, because you need to report it as soon as possible, and you can do that via fixmystreet.com or fillthathole.org.uk, or simply contact your local authority and take photos if possible, if it's safe to do so. And it's not the width of the pothole, it's the depth. So maybe a bottle of water or a can of Coke for scale. Provide a sketch to pinpoint the pothole and get an estimate for the cost of repairs. Provide a copy receipt. And you've got to submit a Freedom of Information request as well to ask for inspection records and reports received and copies of the works orders to identify how the pothole was repaired, whether it was a temporary or permanent repair. You've got to do your homework.
It does sound quite complicated. It sounds like there's quite a few hoops to jump through.
There is. And the reason why it's been made more difficult is because local authorities have moved to what's called a revised risk-based approach on inspections. So years ago, it was a black and white decision. If a pothole was X millimetres deep, there would be an instruction made to repair it. But now staff have to consider a variety of factors without any specific mention of depth. So it depends on who's looking at it as to whether it needs a repair or not.
Would your advice be then, if people get damage, should they always try and get compensation if they can, or is it a waste of time?
It's not a waste of time, Ed, and the councils rely on the default position being that they have a reasonable maintenance and inspection system in place, and they cannot be expected to know of every pothole on the roads. And you're not dealing with the council specifically, you're dealing with claims handlers, and they are loss adjusters. So, for example, if you make a claim on your house insurance, a loss adjuster would be sent out to assess it, and their purpose is to knock your claim down. And that's the reason why you need to submit a Freedom of Information request, because you can't rely on the claims handlers and the local authorities being truthful with you when you come to make a claim.
Yeah, the bit that stands out for me, this survey found that local authorities in the region would have to find an extra 117 million just to maintain the network. That's an eye-watering amount, isn't it?
It is, but I've always said that if councils repaired the potholes properly and to the correct specification and criteria and maintained the roads to a decent standard, they wouldn't be in the position they're in. And what's never mentioned, Ed, is the trenches with utility firms digging up the roads.
Yeah, there's a lot of that at the moment.
And we've all seen roads being resurfaced and then dug up by utility firms. And the trenches are not reinstated properly in a lot of cases. So they're not sealed properly at the edges to stop water getting in, freezing and expanding and breaking the road up. That's what creates the potholes. But councils are not consistently checking the repairs and recharging the work back to the contractors, so taxpayers end up footing the bill for that as well.
So I guess what I take away from this is if you have a problem and if your car is damaged, it's always worth applying for some kind of compensation. What were those two websites again? Was it fixmystreet.com you mentioned?
Yeah, you can look on fixmystreet.com or fillthathole.org.uk.
Fillthathole.org.uk is a great name for a website.
Yeah, but you can see how many times the pothole has been reported. And if the council's been put on notice that the pothole needs to be repaired, they cannot say that they didn't know about it when you hit it. And that you've got to be your own detective and you've got to do your homework. But if it's not right, it's worth the fight. There's no reason why motorists should be left out of pocket due to local authorities' negligence.
Completely agree. Appreciate your time. If it's not right, it's worth the fight, says Scott Dixon, consumer and motoring disputes expert, runs the Facebook page, The Complaints Resolver, fixmystreet.com or fillthathole.org.uk, which I love. West Midlands Mayor Richard Parker has doubled funding to make £240 million available to Coventry, Dudley, Sandwell, Solihull, Walsall and Wolverhampton to cover highways maintenance for 5 years from April 2027. Tell me about your experience. Maybe your car has been damaged by a pothole. What did you do? Did you go to fixmystreet.com or fillthathole.org.uk? And what happened?